The Citizen Mike Show. News. Commentary. Interviews. Citizen Mike Show starts now.
Hey, if it's 9 at night, it's Citizen Mike. Thanks for tuning into the Citizen Mike Show. We do appreciate it. This is the episode for November 16, 2017. Ralph Tomaselli, the editor of the Record Journal, has the night off. But in the studio tonight, Republican town councilor for another 2 years, John LeTourneau. John, thanks for coming on the show again.
Oh, Mike, thanks for having me back. It's always great to be here.
Yeah, and after the last appearance, we had our doubts. Was that what you're trying to
Never doubted. I
All
never
right.
doubted.
Well, again, congratulations on the recent election. You were reelected to your fifth term?
Sixth
term.
Sixth term. I'll be completing 10 years and going for the next 2, which
Not
would be
easy
12.
Not easy to do.
No, it's not.
Let's go over some election results, and I want to talk to you
Sure,
about them. Okay,
sure.
we got a few slides tonight for folks. Bruce, let's get that slide one up, and it just shows the election return in order of top vote getter to the bottom, but all the winners are up there. We didn't include those who didn't make it this time around. The red are Republicans, and the blue, I can't even see that. The blue, I think I have it in blue, but in any event, the others are Democrats. Top vote getter, of course, Vinnie Testa. Then Craig Fishbein and Jason Zandri is the third top vote getter, and so on down the list. Feast your eyes on that for just another second, because we're going to switch slides. Here we go, 3, 2, 1 to JPEG 2. And this is a little different. What I've done here is I've taken the percentage of voters who showed up at the polls and cast ballots for particular candidates, for example, and I compared it to 2015. For example, starting in 2015, Tom Laffin got 54 or 0.5414% of the vote. This year, his percentage went down to 0.4837, and so on down. It's sort of interesting to me as an academic matter who got more than 50% and who didn't get more than 50%. We got just one more slide I want to show, then we'll get to John LeTourneau. There's a third slide, JPEG 3, Bruce, that refers to the mayoral campaign. Let me just explain that. I went back to 2013 because that was the last year the Democrats nominated someone for the mayoral position, and the voter turnout, as you can see, 41% this year, 44% in 2013. And then the percentage of the vote in the middle row for Mayor Dickinson went down, and it's about 56, 57%. There's a lot of people that went to the polls and didn't vote for either candidate, for Jared Lew or Mayor Dickinson, and that's what brought it down to below the 60% range. And the bottom row kind of speaks for itself. Let's take that down. And John LeTourneau, I got a question for you. One might argue, but interested in your view, one might argue that Jared Lew got closer to the mayor than expected, that he overperformed, and congratulations to him. I mean, but
Sure.
That it was surprisingly, it wasn't close by any objective standard, but he got closer. Is that how you read the mayoral election? Then we'll get to the council in a sec.
Well, yes, he did get closer, but comparative to the 15 election, I mean, that's when Kennedy ran against Dickinson. And Dickinson's total in 15 was 58-57, and his total this term for the 17 election was 5,882. So, you know, he was very close in votes. The difference was Kennedy came in at 23-39, Lew came in at 42-23.
So your point there is what exactly?
I think it's the candidate.
Explain what you mean.
I believe, I think Lew presented himself better to the public, and I want to say perceived more as a mayoral possibility than Kennedy, and which brought his votes up. I mean, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. He campaigned in the beginning. He started off very slow, but then worked into from what I understand, a pretty heavy social media campaign. And whether that brought votes out, I don't know. That's something that I think both parties are going to analyze and see how much of that played into this election.
So let's talk about now the council campaign. And Bruce, if you could put JPEG 1 back up briefly. The top vote getters in the council were a Democrat, which is very unusual. Matter of fact, I don't think it's happened within memory that a Democratic candidate for town council is a top vote getter. Craig Fishbein, a Republican, but a thorn in the side of the establishment Republicans, has always been a top vote getter. But Jason Zandri coming in third from the top and pretty close to Vinny Testa. The top three are either Democrats or thorn in the side Republican. And some Democrats are heartened by that. Bruce, let's take that down. Are heartened by that and say, okay, the Democrats are showing a surge. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if it's a surge. What makes the numbers change?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's Testa went from number 4 the last in the 2015 election cycle to number 1. Fishbein, where was Fishbein? Fishbein was number 2 the last election cycle, and he's number 2 again. Zandri, I think Zandri was number 7, so he went from 7 to 3.
So isn't that a surge? I mean, come on, we have Jared Lew kind of doing better than, we talked about that. We have the Democrats, the top vote getters, along with Craig Fishbein, and Gina Morgenstein. Well, coming in from the outside.
Okay.
Not an incumbent. What I mean by that, not an incumbent as a Democrat, and wins.
Well,
surge. Come on.
Well, Gina campaigned hard.
Surge.
I'm not going to call it a surge.
All right.
Gina campaigned hard,
yeah.
And she campaigned hard last election cycle also. So this is her second time around, and it's happened on our side where somebody doesn't get on the first time, but they'll get on the second time.
Mm-hmm.
So I attribute it to that. But you had other people running. You had Reynolds, you had Hine, Conroy, Sullivan, and Stancuna. And I think that changed the vote totals considerably.
So here's another theory that I'm going to suggest to you. We discussed it off camera, and I know you have been over the years, or at least recently, a big Trump supporter, and you're still, I think, a Trump supporter, yeah?
I'm still giving him a lot of latitude. And
looks like you're backing off a bit, but...
No, not a bit. I think what disturbs me with Trump is, if there's any one thing that disturbs me with Trump, is the immigration issues. And I don't agree with that. So, but that's... Well,
let me get back to this theory, and it's not my own theory. I'm finding it in the press all over the place. Let me read you some stuff and get your reaction. There's a few paragraphs I want to get through. The Washington Post wrote on November 9, Donald Trump got them mad enough to run for office. On Tuesday, they got even by toppling Republican incumbents. On Wednesday, a slew of first-time candidates across the country, previously unknown beyond their hometowns and in some cases given little chance of success, woke up as rock stars on the left. It remains to be seen whether this energy will persist through 2018 into 2020. Winning in red House district remains difficult, but Tuesday, the election night, Tuesday night, raised the specter that the Trump era will one day be remembered as the last gasp of white male privilege. Skipping, I'm not reading the whole thing. The Hartford Courant, November 12. Kevin Rennie, a conservative, a Republican.
Okay.
Kevin Rennie, a columnist. He says, voters gave us a glimpse of the great rebuke that is taking shape in reaction to the loathsome demagogue's first year in the White House. The loathsome demagogue is Donald Trump, according to Kevin Rennie. I'm just saying that's what Kevin Rennie, the Republican, is saying. It's part of our strength that our tradition of frequent elections allows voters to express their disapproval and dismay in peaceful and emphatic measures. Disapproval of Donald Trump and supine Republicans did not show itself in every contest. Protest votes never do. But in many states, including Connecticut, it can be found in enough results to be a trend that no one should doubt. Municipal campaigns are the ones in which you most often see voters crossing party lines and splitting their tickets. In many places, the stigma of being a Republican was enough to cause Republicans to lose control of local boards that they have often won in the past despite being outnumbered by registered Democrats. In low turnout elections, which municipal elections almost always are, if one party can energize just a chunk of its members, it can be decisive. It was in many towns on Tuesday. Skipping ahead to the New York Times, and we'll get to you in a sec. The American suburbs appear to be in revolt against President Trump after a muscular coalition of college-educated voters and racial and ethnic minorities dealt the Republican Party a thumping rejection, just reading, thumping rejection on Tuesday, and propelled a diverse class of Democrats into office. Skipping a bit. Voters are taking their anger out at the president, and the only way they can do that is by going after Republicans on the ballot, said this Republican U.S. rep from Pennsylvania. The last one, this is from, must be the Washington Post. Once reliable bastions of moderate Republican politics, this is Hartford Courant, sorry. Once reliable bastions of moderate Republican politics, Connecticut suburbs on Tuesday delivered the party a strong rebuke, driven partly by disenchantment with President Donald Trump. There's been a reaction, no doubt about it, said Mike Clark, a Republican chairman in Farmington. Many people support some of his economic policies, but they're really turned off by his style. Democrats in Farmington took the majority on the town council, a feat they had been unable to achieve since the first year of the Clinton administration. Skipping a bit. In all, Democrats successfully flipped 14 top local offices, mayors or first selectmen, from the Tony Fairfield County suburb of Weston to rural suburbs, etc. The election day shift in Connecticut suburbs mirrored a similar trend across the nation. John LeTourneau, you're the resident expert. Was there a reaction to Donald Trump in Wallingford, and that resulted in some Democrats coming out on the top of the list, the Board of Ed, being taken by the Democrats?
No, I'm not buying into this. It makes great press.
Fake news.
Not fake news.
Okay.
No, not fake news.
Right.
But it makes news. You know, the Washington Post, the Hartford Courant, whatever the paper is, it makes for great news that they can write articles like this, and whether it was Trump or, well, Trump is the president, so they're gonna hammer him, and they're gonna say it's his fault, and it's been that way since Election Day.
Well, it's not the press; it's the Republicans themselves.
Some Republicans, not all.
Okay.
Not all Republicans. I mean, you know, you'll get some Democrats that don't agree either. So I mean, you know, you can't just throw everybody into the same basket. I mean, there's a mixture on this. This president is different. One of those articles said he is different. We haven't seen a president like this. One of the things that I liked with Donald Trump is he's not a politician. He doesn't say the politically correct thing. And he is more in tune to the business world, where if you go in and you're going to haggle a deal, or you're going to sit in the boardroom and you're going to do arguing a little bit, you know, you're not politically correct. Now,
I didn't want to pivot away from the issue I'm trying to get at. I didn't want this show to be about Donald Trump, because that's going to be another show. What I was trying to get at, it's been reported, and Republicans have been quoted, that there is a phenomenon across the country.
To get back, I don't agree with it.
Democrats
I don't agree with it.
Have come out in larger force.
I don't agree with
because of a reaction to Donald Trump.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. It could be a reaction to a number of things.
Okay.
It could be a local reaction. We don't know in certain localities. You know, the newspaper can go into an article and say, in Ohio, the Democrats have taken control of this and control that. We don't know what the local issue is that drove that. There could be a local issue that drove that. What we're seeing in Wallingford, I don't see, if that was true, if the Democrats came out, the Democratic Party in the town of Wallingford is the largest voting party.
Well, unaffiliated is more than outnumber both.
Okay, but I'm going between the two. I'm going between the two major parties,
yeah,
between the Republicans and the Democrats.
Yeah.
If that was true, then we would be looking at a 6-3 council, and the Republicans holding 3 positions, and the Democrats holding 6.
Let's talk about baseball.
Sure.
Because I don't watch Fox News, so I'm not up on the latest. But let's talk about baseball. We have a special video clip that we wanted to show for weeks, but because of the elections and the campaign, we just didn't have a chance to show it. Bailey Wright, a young journalist, who enjoys photojournalism, did this clip as a favor to the Citizen Mike show. She went up to Hartford and visited the Dunkin' Donuts Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't been there.
I haven't either. And
I want to go there, and this little video gives you a real feel for what that's like. World Series is, sort of recently over. It's still not too late to dream about baseball. So here we go. We got the little video clip coming up. 3, 2, 1. Bruce, hit it.
I always love when people come in Dunkin' Donuts Park for the first time, because this ballpark has been such a huge news story the last 2 or 3 years. Many people, and most people, actually have seen the pictures, but when they walk in for the first time and they just look out there and you just see the beautiful sight, you do say, wow, it really does resemble a Major League facility for sure. I think all the views are unique. I think this ballpark does provide some of the best sight lines in all of minor league baseball. I love them all. I mean, I think it comes by with a personal thing. I mean, I think if you're sitting behind the plate, you've got everything covered. You've got a little bit of the skyline just off the right field side, and then you've got the second deck, and then you've got the big video board out there, which is great for entertainment. I think the seats behind the dugout, which obviously you're close to the action, you see what's happening with the players. And then you got the party decks in the outfield. There really is something for everyone. You got the YG Club up top that, people that maybe don't really care about seeing every pitch of the game. They just want to have, a conversation with somebody or just to kind of hang out and be social. You've got that going on as well. So I think with the newer ballparks now, there aren't many bad seats. The way they're building these new venues, it's pretty amazing. And you go to some of the old ballparks, and I mean, you could be in an obstructed view seat, and you are literally sitting behind a pole, where here it's just not the case. You can come 3 different times and have 3 completely different experiences, which is really cool. You've got the corporate level, you got the family level, and then you have just kind of the hospitality, hanging out with your friends for a night out. And the dugout suites, I mean, they're so close to dugout, you're basically in the dugout. You're right next to the dugout. And you're actually closer in the black box home plate club seats. You're actually closer to the catcher and batter than the pitcher is. So if you think about it and take that in for a second, that's pretty ridiculous. It's almost like when I bring people down there during the game, they're looking over their shoulder waiting like, I shouldn't be here. I just don't think I should be this close. And it's an amazing experience for people. I think there's a couple of unique things. I think, first and foremost, the big Dunkin' Cup. It's the largest Dunkin' Donuts cup, 15-foot cup atop of the largest video board in minor league baseball, which is a gigantic screen out in left field. And it's kind of unique. It steams when the yard goats hit a home run. So it's kind of cool. There's not many, ballparks where you see steam come out of a cup. But, Dunkin' Donuts is a naming rights partner, and they're just wonderful folks. And what a better way to charge up the fan base, right, by having steam come out in a home run. So that's pretty cool and unique. You look at the stag atop of the Hartford Terrace in right field, and that's really a Hartford theme. And then the umbrella out in left field for travelers. So it really trying to bring some of the Hartford theme into Dunkin' Donuts Park, which I think is great. What a lot of people don't realize is the history of professional baseball in the capital city. I mean, it's amazing. Lou Gehrig played here. The Hartford Dark Blues were actually a National League team back in the 1800s, and it's the same National League, Major League, that we have today. It's the same. So Hartford was a Major League city for one season, and then they ended up moving to Brooklyn, and then obviously expanded to the National League as it is now. But there's so much history here, and we're just thrilled that baseball's back in Hartford.
So Bailey Wright did that. She is now employed with the Record Journal, and remember that name because she is a future Pulitzer Prize winner. All right.
Good.
So Bailey Wright calls you. You better answer the phone. She did the
Absolutely.
video clip. Let's go back in time to just before the election. You and all the other council candidates and the Board of Ed candidates appeared at a candidate forum. And kind of like this yard goats clip, we wanted to capture some of the atmosphere in the room when you and others answered questions. So we put together maybe, I don't know, a minute to a minute 30 seconds, a short clip of you, a bit of an explanation. In the beginning of the clip, all I did was to copy or to include the question and not your answer, because I wasn't too, didn't want to beat a dead horse. I think that was the first two questions. I think the third question is on charter revision. I cut short your answer. At least I got one word in. But it's the last question that I want to talk about with you and your answer. So let's go back in time and roll that forum clip. 3, 2, 1. Let's hit that.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As a citizen or town council member, what do you think your greatest accomplishment has been in terms of helping our town?
Do you have any objections to the charter changes proposed by the Charter Revision Commission, and do you plan to vote yes to approve them?
I will definitely vote yes.
John, what are the top 3 challenges facing the town of Wallingford, and how would you go about solving them?
Things, the unfinished work, what I'd like to do this term, along with my fellow councilors, is to work on the payroll system for the town of Wallingford. No more paychecks. It should be done electronically. The other thing that I want to see is the renaissance that's going to happen in the next 2 years with Wallingford, and that is the railroad. The railroad is going to, it changed Wallingford in the 1850s when it first came through, and it's going to happen.
So that last part, I think maybe was from your closing statement, but it doesn't matter. You were talking about the train station and the Renaissance.
Yes.
John, walk me through the Renaissance.
Well, what's happening,
Yes.
it's exciting. I find it very exciting. The railroad, this commuter rail, they're billing it as a high-speed rail, but in essence, it's a commuter rail. You'll be able to get on in Wallingford.
Well, I know, but the gates are going to come down, 20 times a day and block traffic and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
But the Renaissance.
Well, it's all part of it, Mike.
Okay, go
it's
ahead.
all part of it.
Didn't
I
mean
mean,
to.
the Renaissance is,
Yeah, the
yes,
Renaissance.
you will have the gates come down 20 or 30 times a day.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so, but it's going to be very short periods of time. And maybe it'll slow traffic down a little bit. That's a good thing.
It sure will.
Okay, so.
They'll be backed up, stop for the
no,
train.
it's just going to slow it down.
Okay, go ahead. Renaissance.
What it's going to do is it's going to bring more people into town. The demographics of Wallingford is going to change. savvy developers are along the rail line between Wallingford and Meriden are gearing up for it. Meriden is gearing up its downtown. Wallingford, on Parker Street, the Parker Place, I believe they're apartments now, the old brick factory building. Behind that was on the industrial park. That's all being leveled. And actually, they've started on the apartments there. There's going to be 300 apartments. And that's 300 apartments of people there that will live and walk to the train and commute to New York, commute to Hartford. But I bet primarily it's going to be to New York and Southern Connecticut.
So I guess I need your definition of Renaissance, because maybe we're thinking
Okay.
it two different. Yeah, what did you mean? How do you know Renaissance when you see it down there?
You're going to see improvement in the area. You're going to see a lot more foot traffic in the area. You're going to see a lot more foot traffic in the downtown. You're going to see vehicle traffic too. That will happen. But you're going to, it's going to bring some life to an area that was basically a dead area.
Now, is that because of the apartments, or is that because of the trains?
Because of the train. Because they mesh together. You know, because of the train, you have the apartments.
Will there be more residential units in your Renaissance view?
Oh, absolutely.
Going
I
up
can
because
say
of the train?
Within, I would venture to say, I'm going to stretch on this one a little bit,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
in the next 5 years, you're going to see all of those kind of broken down industrial buildings that are borderline the track will be apartments and shops.
Okay, so I never understood this, but you're here, and I'm glad you are, because you can walk me through it. Why would someone move from where they are now to get an apartment, because that's what we're talking about, near the railroad tracks, where the train is going to come through 20 or 30 times a day? What is it about the railroad that brings them there? Are they commuting to Hartford? Seriously?
No.
Are they commuting to New Haven?
No.
Seriously?
No, New York.
They're all going to be commuting to New York.
I bet a good portion. What happens right now is, and just give me a little
You got it.
minute or two on
You
this.
got it. I'll give you a stretch.
Okay. So the railroad right now, you have Metro North, and Metro North has grown over time from Greenwich commuters from years ago in the 50s and right after World War II. It was local right there. Then it grew up the line, and it kept growing and growing and growing up the line. The last stop was Milford. Okay. And then it's maybe 20, 30 years ago, they went into Shoreline East. And Shoreline East went out originally to New London. They stopped that, and they brought it into Saybrook, because they found the ridership from Saybrook to New Haven, those were New York and Southern Connecticut commuters.
But get to the Renaissance.
So what's happened is that area, those stations along the all the way to West Haven, that West Haven is a new station, and along the shoreline have expanded as much as they can expand. There's no other place to go. This is the point of least resistance, is to come up the New Haven line from New Haven to Hartford. And I'm not saying people in Hartford are going to be, or farther north, are going to be commuting to New York. It's going to be North Haven when they get their station, Wallingford, and Meriden. It's going to be those three towns, and those three towns are going to benefit, and because people can afford to live in this area. Right now, they can afford to live in this area. And Milford, I always go back to Milford because years ago I worked on that infamous project in town, the Kaplan Wooding project. And I can remember talking to Mr. Smith and Mr. Kraft that pretty much developed all of downtown Milford, what the demographics were. What are you after in Wallingford? And they were after the same demographics without the train. They were looking for the same demographics. And this train is just going to enhance it.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing from you is that people presently working in New York City are not going to be looking to move to Milford or other places. They're going to hear about new apartments, a lot of them, in Wallingford, and they're going to move from Milford or Fairfield County or around the shoreline to Wallingford, and that's the renaissance. They're going to fill the apartments. They already work in New York, and they'll get on the train and commute. That's the renaissance we're talking about.
And there's a lot of people in this area.
Yeah.
I did it. I did it for 2 years. I commuted. I had to drive from Wallingford to New Haven, get on the 6:57 in the morning train, the 6:57 to Grand Central Station.
And the benefit,
I would have loved to have been able to go to right over here.
The benefit to Wallingford is, finish that sentence, because they're moving from Milford and the other parts of the state.
Well, the benefit to Wallingford is you're going to have when I say the demographics are going to change, because it is these are not young kids, they're not senior citizens. This is you're going to be in that late 20s, early 30s to maybe early 40s age bracket, single income or double income, not necessarily kids, could easily afford a house, don't want a house, they work hard, they commute hard, and they play hard.
I get that. So
those are the ones.
So the renaissance is the completion of the apartment project that's already underway.
And there'll be others.
And somehow a developer is going to cobble together other properties and build even more apartments.
Sure.
And they will be 4 or 5 stories high. And
well, 4 stories.
You got to make money. So 4. I'll agree with that. And
we limit it.
And so it's the building of lots of apartments and a lot of people that work in New York moving from other parts of the states to Wallingford so they can get on the train.
And there'll be people that...
I just want to make sure I know it when I see it.
And not only apartments, it'll be housing too, because, you know, a house in Saybrook is in Guilford and Madison is a lot more expensive than Wallingford.
Well, where are they going to live in Wallingford? They're going to drive from all over town to...
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, they could, on the east side, west side, I mean, from where I live on the east side to downtown is, you know, just, it's
you know, I got to say, then I want to move on to other parts, but someone working in New York isn't going to get on a train at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 1 a.m., 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m. You have all these trains going through in the middle of the day. That's not for New York commuters. I don't know what that's for.
No.
But it's not for New York.
No. Don't
shape me up.
Middle of the day.
Okay, go ahead.
This might not be the middle of the day. This is, you know, they're looking at these trains. It's going to be the commuter time.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the morning commute, and it's going to be, so if there's 15 trains in the morning, there's going to be 15 trains at night.
But aren't the trains strung out all day or something? Maybe not, we'll see.
I don't know what the schedule is on that. You know, it's going to be just like Metro North.
Let's slightly pivot away from the train station to the topic of economic development generally. And in the past election, this was talked about to some degree, economic development. I mean, it's hard for candidates to get issues out, and it's very difficult. Only when they're interviewed, really by the Record Journal, you get
extremely difficult.
1 sentence in or 2 sentences in, or the forum, you get maybe 2 minutes.
Well, you get 2.5 minutes.
You get 2.5 minutes. How big a deal is economic development for voters of Wallingford, such that the issue of economic development determines their council vote? Is this a big deal, or are we overstating it?
Did it influence voters?
Yeah.
I don't think it influenced
How
voters.
much do they care about economic development and the renaissance that you're talking about? And I don't appear to be skeptical. I'm generally soliciting various opinions on this.
Some people do and some people don't.
Yeah.
The ones that do, they pay attention to it. And the ones that don't, you know, they're going to vote, and they're going to go vote for because, gee, I like John LeTourneau. I like the sweaters he wears.
See, I'm just trying to figure out why someone who lives on the west side, someone who lives on the east side, someone who lives near the Meriden border, much gives a hoot about the renaissance near the train station or some vague concept called economic development. Maybe they do, and I'm not a doubter. Again, I'm trying to ferret out opinions by sort of challenging the conventional wisdom.
If they give a hoot about their town...
Tell me, walk me through that.
If they give a hoot about their town, because this is what makes Wallingford Wallingford, is what happens with economic development in the downtown area or in the industrial parks, or, you know, it's a piece. It's a piece of the Wallingford fabric.
Okay.
And economic development, they work very hard to keep their retention committee on the economic development committee. They're constantly going out to businesses. Are you okay? What can we do? You know, can we help you? Is there anything, you know? And it's worked. It's worked very well. And a lot of things have come to light because of it. The renaissance, I love to use that word because I really do. I am very upbeat about the train because I saw it work along the shoreline. I saw it work in other communities, and I've been tracking this thing for over 20 years. No pun intended, but the...
I wasn't laughing at that.
I know you weren't.
I know. You got to do a lot better.
I got it much better than I know. But yeah, it's all part. It's all part. It's not one thing. And the ones that don't care about, they go, that train is nothing going to be a pain in the neck, or well, who cares about, you know, we'll never see a building downtown. Oh, yeah, there's naysayers. I've lived in this town for 35 years, and I've talked to naysayers for 35 years.
I want to move to another topic. I just wanted to introduce the issue that one person's renaissance may be another person's headache. That's all. And I saw the election. A lot of people are talking about economic development. I'm not sure everyone understood what everyone else meant. That's all. But I want to change.
Well, no.
Give me the final word on that. And then
final word on that is I think people have to keep an upbeat attitude about our town. And it's easy to be the Debbie Downer on some of this stuff and say, you know, oh, gee whiz, it's, you know, we got 30 trains a day. Oh, what are we going to do? The traffic is going to back up. You know, it's going to be all over the place. But on the other hand, you got to look at what the positive is going to be for Wall. I look at the glass as half full, not half empty. But that's me. Hopefully, Citizen Mike does.
Okay. I do want to get to another subject, but I'll give you my view on it, and it goes back to when the train was first proposed. When the train was first proposed, I was not a true believer. It had the promise of, and it was justified on the grounds that it would more than pay for itself, that it would create all kinds of jobs, that it would create all kinds of boom in the grand list. That there are all kinds of benefits for local towns along the way. The risks to the train were palpably apparent. Traffic interruption for towns like Wallingford, the cost to the state and to the taxpayers, and the benefits were highly speculative. The apartment complex you mentioned would have, well, we think would have come in without it, but I don't want to debate
Absolutely
that.
not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
Let's hold off that, and I want to get to another. I
can see we can do a whole show.
We
just
could
on
do
the
a whole
railroad.
So we have a clip coming up about you and the mayor discussing the amount of a surplus, discussing to what degree should the mayor report to the town council about how we're doing in the middle of a fiscal year and after a fiscal year comes to an end, what the timing of the mayor's report on the surplus should be. And we're going to show that clip in a minute, but I just wanted to explain to the viewers the issue. There's 2 fiscal years that are in play in this video, and I want to grab my file for just a minute. One fiscal year is the fiscal year that ends June 30. And the year that ends June 30, as surplus is reported out the following December, really the last business day of December. That's one fiscal year. And part of the conversation, I think what you were getting at, is when can we learn the results of the fiscal year that just closed June 30? That's one issue. But mixed in there was the fiscal year that we're in, month to month, the fiscal year that starts July 1 and, you know, and goes month to month. And the mayor was mixing in, we're not going to report to you month to month. I mean, the projections change. But the conversation, I think, was started about the fiscal year that was over June 30, not the fiscal year you were in July, August, September, October, and November. So part of that confusion resulted in this interchange. I just want to forecast what's on the clip because it moves quick. You got to follow the conversation. I want to preview it a little bit. The mayor said we don't project the surplus, and that's the surplus of the fiscal year that would end in 2018, and you weren't asking him to project that surplus. Yet that's how he kind of started. And he said, at the point we know the surplus, but he says, I don't know it ahead of time. I make no effort to guess at it, and I don't know which fiscal year he was talking about, the one that closed June 30, 2017, or the one that was going to close. But you said, so Mayor, you don't know until the auditor gives it to you. And I just want to pause here. The town prepares the financial statements. The town gives the surplus to the auditor. The town does that at the latest in the fall, so it's already been done. The auditor checks it, but the auditor doesn't give the surplus to the mayor. The town prepares those numbers, and it knows well in advance what that surplus is going to be. And the mayor answered you, absolutely, I don't ask ahead of time, and once we know the surplus, we start dealing with the needs of the budget. He's talking about January. The mayor says, I got sick and tired of reading in the newspapers about there was a projected surplus for the state, and then a deficit, then a surplus. And he says, you could have had 15 discussions month by month about what it might be. What was the point? Let's roll the video, then you and I, let's talk about it. Bruce, okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
I'm not looking to spend, I won't spend dime one on a projected surplus. Absolutely not. Can't do that. But we have the right to know. We have that right to know with that projected surplus.
We don't project a surplus. That's the bottom line. And at the point we know it, I don't know it ahead of time. Make no effort to try to guess at it.
So you don't know until the auditor gives you the number?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't ask ahead of time, and once we have it, then we start dealing with what the needs on the budget are. You know, I got sick and tired of reading in the papers about it was a projected surplus for the state. Then it was a projected deficit. Then, no, it's a surplus again. You could have had 15 discussions month by month about what it might be, and in the final analysis, it turned out it was a deficit. What was the point of all those discussions? Every month, the comptroller and the OPM comes out with a report. Oh, it's going this way, it's going that way. What is the point to that?
I'll the point in a second, but take it away.
Okay. So just at the end of that clip, the mayor does something he's very masterful. And that is, after I got through saying what I was going to say, he turned that whole conversation around and blamed the state of Connecticut and went into that whole half a minute clip of, you know, I'm sick and tired of the state telling us of the surplus, and he's going on and on and on and on. So he diverted the whole conversation to blame the state. Now, we're going to come back to, I don't know how he cannot know it, because...
Now, which surplus are you talking about? Which fiscal year is what I meant?
The prior fiscal
the one
year.
that ended June 30, 2017.
Right,
okay.
Right. The auditor gets the figures. The auditor doesn't make up the figures. What he does is he gets from the town comptroller, he gets the packet, and in that packet are all the figures, and the auditor goes through and says, yes, comptroller, I do agree with you. This is what happened. This is your money you took in. This is the money that you spent. He goes through the whole thing, and then he says, you're in balance.
Now, were you talking about, did you want the financial results for the year ending June 30 sooner? Is that the numbers you were looking for?
Yeah.
When did you want those numbers, the June 30, 2017 numbers?
We should have had those. Actually, we should be able to have numbers at any given point during the year. Myself running a business, I know where I am, profit or loss, at any given point in the year. Yeah,
but I don't want to mix up fiscal years because we're going to get to the year that you're in. The year ending June 30, okay. 2017.
Yeah, it makes no difference, either or. I mean,
yeah, okay.
It's, you know, what I'm looking for is where are we at any given point. I should be able to say, to the comptroller or to the mayor's office, where are we? Are we in the red? Are we in the black?
And the mayor's answer to you was?
And the mayor is, I don't know. I don't know.
Is that credible to you?
No, it's not at all.
You think he knows and doesn't want to tell you?
I think he knows, and he doesn't, for whatever reason, he's holding this, he's afraid to release information. I really don't know. I've been trying to figure it out for 10 years.
Seems to me that anyone who runs a government or a business pays the chief accountant or the comptroller or it pays the financial department to give them a periodic update, whether it's week to week or month to month, but no longer than that.
Oh, sure.
And so you call in the accountant and you say, accountant, we making money, we losing money, where do we stand? And the accountant says, well, I got that right here, because that's what I'm paid to do.
Absolutely.
And the accountant runs through it and says, well, through the month ending, let's make this up, October 31, 2017, that's the month, we showed a monthly profit of 1%. We're a little ahead of where we were last year. Things are looking good. We're okay. And so the boss can say, good, we don't need to make any mid-course corrections. Thank you for the current update. And that's how...
That's what I was after.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was after. I consider Wallingford, a corporation, a big corporation, multi-million-dollar corporation.
You bet, $162 million or something.
$162 million corporation. Yeah. And, Jim Bowes, our comptroller, is our chief financial officer, and he should have that. It would be no different than if I walked into Yulbrick and I talked to Jay Shea, who is chief financial officer, and if I worked for Yulbrick, and I'm sure he could come up and tell me.
Well, I'm sure he could.
Right there.
And I agree with you. I think
this is where it should be in town also, because this is not my money as a counselor. It is not the mayor's money. It is the people of Wallingford.
So anyone in control of a business or a government who says throughout the fiscal year, I have no idea if we're making money or losing money, I have no idea if the expenses are out of control, I have no idea if revenues are dropping, I have no idea where we are, and I don't want to know until the year end closes and the auditor tells me, is either not telling the truth or is not a very good manager, one or the other. I mean, you've got to know. Well, you take...
Maybe not telling the truth, but if
do you think the mayor really doesn't know where Wallingford stands? At any given week, he intentionally keeps himself. He intentionally keeps himself far from the facts.
I hope he does, because if he doesn't, then he should be replaced.
So the other fiscal year we're talking about is revealed in a June 19, 2017 letter from Jim Bowes, really to the council. And the letter dated June 19, and it says the 2016-2017 surplus. This is the year that closed. Yeah, it closed June 30. Will not be determined until we close the books. This is usually in mid to late September, after transactions in July and August that affect fiscal 2016 and 17 are recorded. So, Jim Bowes said, we know what the surplus is in mid to late September. So by now the auditor has the books, the auditor has the town's calculation of what the past year's surplus or deficit was, and as a matter of policy, and we could argue that in another show, the mayor just wants to hold off until the end of the year. Frankly, a lot of towns do that. The other issue that the mayor mixed in here is that in the course of a fiscal year, he claims he doesn't know month to month how the town is doing with respect to revenue and expenses. I want to pivot and ask you a question, and it's a campaign issue. Is the issue of surpluses and fund balances going to fade, in your opinion, from campaign issues and from candidates' rhetoric? Is that yesterday's issue, or do you think it's still going to have life?
I think it'll always have life.
Okay.
I think it'll always have life, and it'll depend on the candidate and where they take it and if it picks up any steam. Other candidates over time have tried to pick at that a little bit, and matter of fact, I think even yourself have picked at it when you ran for mayor.
Well, when I ran for mayor, there was a 10% tax increase.
Well, yeah.
And I still lost. So,
Yeah, I know.
Handily.
But no, I think
So I raised
do.
it, you bet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it'll always be raised, and it should be. It
So
absolutely should be.
Here's what I asked. So I did my own little calculations of what the year-end surplus I think is probably going to be based on the town's numbers, not my numbers, the town's numbers. I just did a little subtraction and addition, and it looks like the town is going to end up with a very small surplus and basically break even of between $400,000 and $500,000. All of that attributable to the Board of Ed. None of that attributable to town operations. If I'm right, and it's unaudited, and Jim Bowes and Mayor won't sign off on that, but it's a legitimate campaign issue if we have the information. But if that's what the surplus ends up being, all of it attributable to the Board of Ed, I think it's very hard for the Democrats or anyone else to keep up the drumbeat of the surplus and the fund balances, especially if general government is showing a small deficit. Seems to me what you want, and at one point Vinny Testa said this, I think it was in the forum, you shoot for break even. I've said you shoot for break even. I'm not trying to drive the surplus up or down. Shoot for break even. That's pretty close to break even, and if there's 2 years in a row of break even or a deficit, I just wonder what's left to talk about in the way of campaign issues. Your thoughts? I know it's a hypothetical.
I
know it's hypothetical.
There will always be something to talk about in the town of Wallingford.
But would that be?
I don't think.
Okay.
If the numbers start, coming in, I mean, if we're getting away from the, $1 million, $2 million, millions of dollars of surpluses,
yeah.
And getting more back to a balanced, so-called break even balanced budget.
Yeah.
I don't know how could it be? I mean, you'll never. I don't think you can't ever balance to the penny like that because there's too many variables in town. But with town government, but those figures are in the ballpark.
Yeah. Let's talk about politics once again and not finances. John Sullivan, why did he lose so badly in your view?
I firmly believe it was his. It's a perfect storm. It's a perfect storm. I think the biggest thing was his positioning on the ballot. I think a lot of people, a lot of voters, being involved with it, close to it, we understand it very well. But I think a lot of people didn't understand what a petitioning candidate is. So they go into the voting booth and they look at the first line, which is Democratic line, the second line, which is Republican line, and it says you can pick up to any 9.
Let's get the ballot up while you talk. I think we've got our last JPEG. So this is half of the ballot, and I didn't include the whole thing because the Board of Ed is off to the right, and I couldn't fit it on the screen.
Okay.
But this is what the council and mayoral and the charter revision questions look like. And on the there is, as you say, petitioning candidate John
let's
Sullivan.
go to line C.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have line A is the Democrats, line B is the Republicans, line C, and the second one in is John Sullivan. So where it says, you can pick up to any 9, vote for any 9, but you look at the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and that's where your eye goes. Pick any 9 in out of those rows, and then you have the Lone Ranger down below there and petitioning candidate. And then below that you have write-in votes. So you're kind of in no man's land at that point.
So you think the public was fooled?
Well, I don't know, fooled, but maybe more confused. There might have been some confusion.
So you think the public was confused?
To a point.
And that's why he lost?
No,
okay.
it's well, yes, but it's part of the what I call the perfect storm. The other one was apparently on looking at Facebook. That some of the postings on that, and people were upset. Some of the Democrats were upset that he left the party 2 weeks after the election, the last election cycle.
2015.
2015.
Let's take that JPEG down, Bruce. Thanks.
And brought, they felt that they were used, so there was some anger there, I think the combination of things, it didn't help them. It just didn't help. But the biggest thing is positioning on the line.
So,
The petitioning candidate.
party line, party endorsement matters?
I don't think it matters as much as it's comfortable to the voter. I think the voters go in, they're comfortable with line A and line B. And line C is still no man's land. You know, they're not comfortable with that.
They don't know how to deal with that, is what your
They don't
theory
know.
is.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of voters that didn't know how to deal with it.
Is there a solution?
If I was John Sullivan, I think I would have petitioned. I would have, instead of being an unaffiliated candidate, I would have gone back to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party and petitioned my way on. In petitioning, then you are put on that party line. So he was a Democrat. He could have went back, registered as a Democrat, not have anything to do with town politics, but petition his way with signatures on
To the Democratic line.
to the Democratic line, and he would have been
Then he would have won.
someplace
in your
on.
view.
I think he would have won. I think, and I think it would have. I think we would have ended up with a 5-4 council.
Let's make that the final word. We've run out of time.
Well, that was a quick hour.
Well, I know you got a lot more to say about economic development, the Renaissance, train stations, budgets. It's only an hour show, and
Well, I need to come back because
and we need to have you back and further explain the Renaissance. And we won't wait for the 2 years, because by 2 years it'll be there for us. The Renaissance will have happened.
I think we're going to see, honestly, we're going to see a lot of movement in May. That's when the trains start running.
Thanks for watching the Citizen Mike Show. Thank you, John. We're going to make that the last word, and we're going to clip this prediction of yours and put it in future shows. Thanks for tuning to the
Thank
Citizen
you.
Mike Show. We do appreciate it. We're here on Wednesdays at 5, but WPAA broadcasts the Citizen Mike Show at 9 o'clock on Thursday, Friday, and Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And in a couple of days after we produce the show, it's up on YouTube. If you go to Citizen Mike Wallingford channel and click all the appropriate buttons and stuff, you can get it on YouTube. We'd appreciate you doing that. Thanks for tuning in. Good night.